Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett delivered bad news to Donald Trump about his plans to try to send in the National Guard and other parts of the military into Chicago. And she delivered it in the form of a short order that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but makes very clear that the Supreme Court isn't in a rush this time to quickly overturn an order by the lower courts. I'm Adam Klasfeld. You're watching All Rise News here on Legal AF, here on the Midas Touch Network. And the ruling that I'm talking about this time by Justice Barrett was pretty much just a docket entry. And it was a docket entry in the case that Trump's Justice Department filed trying to quickly pause lower court's orders blocking him from sending in the troops to Chicago. Like was a case in Los Angeles and Portland, Trump has tried to justify the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago on Title 10, specifically Section 12406. And under that statute, he needs to prove one of three things: either an invasion, a rebellion, or an inability to execute the laws of the United States using the regular forces. And very recently, what Justice Barrett did was seek more information about the regular forces. I'm going to read the very short paragraph about that and note the dates when she wants more briefing on this. The docket entry says, quote, "The application for stay presented to Justice Barrett is referred to her by her to the court. The parties are directed to file supplemental letter briefs addressing the following question: whether the term regular forces refers to the regular forces of the United States military, and if so, how that interpretation affects the operation of 10 U.S.C. 12406-3. The briefs, not to exceed 15 pages, are to be filed by Monday, November 10th, 2025. Letter reply briefs, not to exceed 10 pages, are to be filed by Monday, November 17th, 2025. So the first thing to pay attention to in this short paragraph is the schedule. This is a weeks-long schedule. Throughout that time, Trump is blocked from sending in the National Guard into Chicago. That's because a lower court judge and a 3-0 intermediate court of the Seventh Circuit blocked him from sending in the National Guard. And what she's communicating in this short order, even with the schedule, is that the Supreme Court is taking its time. It's not immediately giving Trump what he wants, as they've done in quite a few other cases on the emergency docket and the shadow docket. At least so far as the timeline goes, that's not happening here. But what she also communicates, and it's a question that hasn't come up a lot in the other litigation, is what does the regular forces mean? Does regular forces mean civilian law enforcement agencies? Does it mean local police? Does it mean ICE and DHS and Federal Protective Services? Or does it mean the military? That's a new question. And it was a question presented to her in an amicus brief by a Georgetown University law professor named Marty Lederman. Marty Lederman was a former high-ranking Justice Department official under the Obama administration, and he submitted a legal brief arguing that regular forces don't mean local police. They don't mean civilian law enforcement at all. Regular forces means the military. Here's what he said in his legal brief, which appears to be what Justice Barrett is referring to here. Quote, "Because President Trump has not used regular military forces to assist or protect ICE in the Chicago area, he cannot, and he has not, determined that the executive branch would be unable to execute any federal laws with the aid of such regular military forces," end quote. If regular forces does mean the military, Trump loses. That's what Professor Lederman is saying in that passage, and the Supreme Court wants briefing on that question. Now, you might be asking now, what do you mean the military with being the regular forces? doesn't that mean Trump can send in the military? Professor Lederman says no later in the amicus brief. Quote, in offering this argument about the proper meaning of regular forces, amicus does not mean to suggest that the president has legal authority to direct regular military forces to execute federal laws in Illinois. Whether or not the president may do so is anything but certain, particularly in light of the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits anyone from willfully using any part of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, or the Space Force to execute the laws. Quote, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress. He goes on, nothing in the Constitution expressly authorizes a president or the Secretary of Defense to use the armed forces to execute federal laws, end quote. So that's the legal argument advanced by the professor to the Supreme Court, in an argument that the Supreme Court appears to be taking seriously, and an argument that, if accepted, would mean Trump loses. That could have profound ramifications, not only in the case in Chicago, which Trump is trying to pause. He's trying to get these rulings against him lifted by the Supreme Court. And this is an argument that hasn't really been made in the lower courts. If the Supreme Court accepts this argument, this could be a profound loss for Donald Trump. Now, we still don't know what's happening. We don't know what the Supreme Court will rule. But we do know in this brief order referred to the court by Justice Amy Coney Barrett that the Supreme Court is seriously considering an interpretation of a statute that would just pull the rug out from under Trump's entire justification for everything we've been seeing in Los Angeles, Portland, and Chicago. It's a new legal development that hasn't gotten a lot of attention because, again, it's a short order, it's pretty dense, and it goes into these arcane legal concepts. But it's one worth following because it could be a very important legal issue that takes away the power that Trump is claiming over the use of the military in American cities. Thank you for watching. To support my journalism, visit www.allrisenews.com. That's www.allrisenews.com. If you subscribe, you'll get my reporting straight to your inbox. I'm a fully independent journalist, and your support helps make possible the work that I'm doing. And to watch more videos like this where I break down the stories that affect your lives, click subscribe to Legal AF to keep watching these videos.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.